The Arabian Sea, once just a trade route, now a chessboard. A quiet stretch of blue waters that carries not only ships and oil tankers, but also the weight of global strategy, rivalry, and shifting power. And today, those waters are alive again, not with waves, but with warships. Indian destroyers slicing through the sea, American aircraft carriers anchoring with precision. Two democracies, side by side, conducting naval exercises that send a message far beyond the horizon, a message that echoes from Washington to Beijing, from Moscow to the Indo-Pacific. India and the United States have just concluded one of their most significant joint naval drills in years in the Arabian Sea. On the surface, it's a military exercise. Beneath it, it's a declaration, a projection of unity in a world tilting dangerously towards conflict. But what's really happening here? What message is India sending? And how does this affect the fragile balance between New Delhi, Washington, Moscow, and Beijing? Let's dive deep, not just into the Arabian Sea, but into the strategic undercurrents beneath it. The scene is breathtaking. Massive Indian Navy destroyers, INS Chennai, INS Kolkata, standing tall alongside U.S. Navy giants like the USS Carl Vinson. The ocean churns with power as aircraft take off from carrier decks. Helicopters buzz overhead. Submarines lurk silently beneath. On the decks, Indian and American sailors exchange salutes, a rare moment of cooperation. And yet, everyone knows, this cooperation has layers. For India, this is more than a military show. It's a message. A signal that New Delhi, despite its careful balancing act between Washington and Moscow, is prepared to play hardball when needed. After all, relations with the U.S. are currently strained trade tensions, tariffs, and disagreements over Russian oil. But when it comes to defense, the two nations are still moving closer. Why? Because both India and America know that the real threat isn't each other. It's China. Beijing has been expanding its naval footprint aggressively. From the South China Sea to the Indian Ocean, Chinese submarines and spy ships have been spotted moving quietly, gathering intelligence, mapping out routes, testing India's patience. And now, as India and the U.S. conduct this massive naval exercise right at China's maritime doorstep, it's impossible to ignore the signal. The message is simple. The Indo-Pacific is not for domination, it's for balance. But let's pause for a second. Why the Arabian Sea? Why now? Because the Arabian Sea connects multiple worlds. It's India's western flank, leading to the Persian Gulf, where nearly 70% of India's energy imports come from. It's also where Chinese naval expansion meets Western presence. The U.S. Fifth Fleet operates from Bahrain. China's Navy operates from Djibouti. India stands right between them geographically and strategically. So when Indian and American warships move together here, it's not just an exercise. It's a message that India is defending not only its own waters, but the global commons that ensure free trade and stability. But make no mistake, this is a risky dance. Because while India drills with the U.S., it continues buying weapons and oil from Russia, the very country that Washington has sanctioned and accused of weaponizing energy. So how does India manage this balancing act? The answer lies in one word: autonomy. India's foreign policy is built on strategic autonomy, the ability to partner with everyone, but bow to no one. That's why, even as American destroyers sail beside Indian frigates, Moscow remains New Delhi's biggest defense supplier. It's a tightrope walk that very few nations can maintain. And yet, India does it, and does it well. The joint exercise called Operation Sea Vigil 2025 focused on anti-submarine warfare, air defense, carrier strike operations, and search and rescue missions. But the real focus wasn't just military preparedness. It was interoperability, the ability for Indian and American forces to operate seamlessly if push ever comes to shove. That's a scenario that worries Beijing and reassures allies like Japan and Australia. Because if you look closely, this isn't just a bilateral drill. It's a piece of the larger puzzle called the Quad, the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, an alliance that includes India, the US, Japan, and Australia. The goal, to keep the Indo-Pacific free and open and to counter any nation that tries to dominate it. And China knows it. In fact, just hours after the exercise began, Chinese state media published a fiery editorial calling it a provocation and accusing India of acting as an American proxy. The editorial went further, saying India was risking its independence by aligning too closely with Washington. But India's response? Silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Because India knows that this partnership with the US isn't about servitude, it's about leverage. It's about showing the world that India can stand on its own, partner when it chooses, and lead when it must. Let's remember, it wasn't always like this. A decade ago, the Indian Navy operated largely with Soviet and Russian hardware. Communication systems were incompatible with NATO standards. Exercises with the US were limited, symbolic even. But today, that's changed completely. From logistics exchange agreements to encrypted communication channels, the two forces are more connected than ever. And this evolution isn't just military, it's psychological. For decades, India was seen as a balancing power, cautious, hesitant to take sides. But now, under Modi's government, New Delhi is showing a new kind of assertiveness. Whether it's standing up to China at Doklam and Galwan, or rejecting Western criticism over its Russian oil purchases, India's message is clear. We will make decisions based on Indian interests, not anyone else's. That's what makes this exercise so powerful. It's not about India choosing sides, it's about India defining its own side. But let's not overlook the domestic angle. For Prime Minister Narendra Modi, these exercises also serve a political purpose. They project India as a rising global power, confident, assertive, respected. The visuals of Indian destroyers alongside American aircraft carriers play perfectly into the narrative of a new India taking its rightful place on the world stage. But even friends can disagree. This independence is exactly why the US still courts India so aggressively. Because even though New Delhi won't be a junior partner, it's still the most valuable player in the Indo-Pacific. And this naval drill proves it. But the Arabian Sea exercise is also a reminder of the future. A future where the Indo-Pacific, not the Atlantic, becomes the center of global power. The world's most important shipping routes, energy lanes, and military choke points all run through this region. Whoever controls the Indo-Pacific will shape the 21st century. And that's why India's Navy is expanding like never before. Nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, advanced destroyers, all part of a grand plan to make the Indian Ocean truly India's ocean. The US knows it, China fears it, and Russia respects it. But here's the deeper story, one that most mainstream outlets miss. These exercises are not just about ships and missiles. They're about trust, because military partnerships are built not on paperwork, but on confidence. The kind of confidence that comes when two nations face the same storm and sail through it together. During the exercise, joint anti-submarine operations were conducted, simulating Chinese submarines entering the Indian Ocean. Indian P-8I surveillance aircraft, coordinated with American Poseidon planes, tracking underwater threats. A clear rehearsal for the real thing if ever Beijing tries to test India's patience again. And that's the key preparation. India doesn't seek war, but it refuses to be caught unprepared. These exercises are a message to anyone watching that the Indian Navy is ready, capable, and connected with the world's most powerful forces. Now imagine how Beijing reads this. For China, seeing India and the US working this closely is a nightmare scenario. Because it means the Indo-Pacific strategy isn't just talk, it's action, it's deterrence in motion. But what makes this moment truly unique is how it fits into the larger geopolitical storm brewing worldwide. Russia and China are deepening ties. The US is reasserting itself in Asia. Europe is diversifying away from Chinese supply chains. And in the middle of it all, India is playing its own game, refusing to be anyone's pawn. This is India's rise, not loud, not reckless, but deliberate. Every warship, every drill, every trade negotiation, they all pieces of a larger puzzle, an India that commands respect on its own terms. And this naval exercise, it's just one scene in that story, a story that's still being written. As the sun sets over the Arabian Sea, the Indian and American warships line up for one final salute. Their flags flutter in the golden light. The message is silent but unmistakable strength. Through partnership, peace through power, sovereignty through strategy. Because in the end, this isn't just an exercise, it's a vision. A vision of an India that's no longer reactive but proactive, no longer cautious but confident, no longer just a player but a power. And as the waves crash and the horizon glows, one thing becomes clear. The world's center of gravity is shifting eastward, toward India. And this time, the Indian Navy isn't just watching history unfold, it's writing it.